Hello everyone, Mollusk here, bringing you another Warhammer Fantasy Battle Report. Before we begin, a quick public service announcement regarding the style of video that can be found on this channel. I like listening to other people's battle reports and talk videos while I'm painting. There's a lot of painting to be done, and I find the two go hand in hand now, to the point where it's not really the same if I don't have the video on in the background whilst I'm painting. But whilst I listen to the videos, I don't necessarily watch them. I glance over at the screen every now and then, and if something particularly interesting happens, then I'll go back and rewind it and pay a bit closer attention. But that's generally what I want, and so what I aim to give back to the community. I am going to try to improve the production value on the channel, and who knows where I'll go in future, but for now, it's really just going to be me narrating stuff with pictures for reference. Okay, got that out of the way, let's get to the battle. We deployed, as you see here, his dwarves facing my beastmen from across the table. He deployed his gyrocopter on the east flank near the building, and I deployed my razor gore, one of my razor gores, opposite it on my side. He then deployed his thunderers, and I deployed my unit of 20 gore. He deployed his organ gun, and I deployed my unit of 25 gore with full command. We're going to try to use that forest as some cover on our way towards him, and pray it doesn't eat us on the way. I think he then deploys his cannon, and then I deploy my second razor gore on the west flank. He then deploys his scary unit, or horde, of hammerers, and I deploy my first minotaur unit. He deploys the quarrelers, and I really don't like them, they're nasty. So I deploy the second unit of minotaurs. He finally deploys his flame cannon, which I've been waiting for because my mage has a certain magic item that is good against flaming attacks, and I'm very excited to use it, and I need to make sure my mage is in the unit that it's going to fire at. So I pop him here in the unit of 20 gore, and then because that's the last of my opponent's drops, I put down my Doombull general, my Gorball battle stand bearer, and my Cygor, who is being protected from the gyrocopter by my razor gore, and is going to be throwing rocks all day long at those war machines. My grand plan is to charge up, use the gores as a meat shield for the minotaurs. Basically, the minotaurs are going to glut themselves on the soft, tasty bits of his army, whilst the gore die horribly and distract the tougher, more gribbly bits of his army. And we'll see how that goes. Here's a picture of the quarrelers and the hammerers, and I'm not looking forward to them. Here's a close picture of his artillery and gun line, which is my main target. I probably should be going after his quarrelers and hammerers because they're the where the points are, but I'm not confident of my chances about taking them. And that pain in the arse is the gyrocopter. There's a close-up of my west flank, and my centre and east flank. And here's my secret weapon. 2 units of 10 ambushing gore. A Beastmen minotaur herd, led by Heartbleed the Doombull, have been ravaging settlements in the foothills of Karak Kadrin. The local dwarves have amassed a war throng to end the depredations of the chaotic raiders, and succeed in drawing this battle on a Saturday afternoon. Thanks to their well-ordered deployment, the dwarves win the right to go first. And in the movement phase, they explode into dynamic motion. The gyrocopter moves back towards the front lines, presumably after detecting the presence of the foe, and I think the hammerers shuffle about half an inch forward. In the shooting phase, the cannon sights the Cygor through the gap in the trees. The cannonball hits the monster like it's a large fish in a very small barrel, and does 4 out of its 5 wounds to it. I'm just going to say here, the rules for cannons are stupid. They just can't miss. He rolled a misfire for his shot, and because it's a dwarf cannon, he just gets to re-roll it. Or because he's got a rune on it, he gets to re-roll it. So there's a 1 in 12 chance that he's not going to hit this thing. Doesn't matter, there's a whole fecking forest in the way. Because it's not ballistic skill shooting, there's no penalties whatsoever. Which I just can't believe is right, but apparently it is. It's just brutal. Yeah, I hate cannons. Okay, so the organ gun, I think it must have been that. I can't think that anything else has the range to hit these guys. Shoots and kills 3 of my gore. And then the quarrelers pluck off another one, I think. Looks like there. No break test, which is great. In the Beastmen turn, we launch our ambush. The first unit of gore gets lost and so waits for another turn. But the second group comes in exactly where they need to come in, which is brilliant. That stone there is an altar of Cain, so everyone's frenzied, which is going to be larks. And here's the rest of my movement. The Razor Gore on the east moves up to hide behind a big rock. The bigger unit of gore bravely enters the forest, which they find out to be a fungus forest. Please don't eat the mushrooms, guys. Next to them, the Minotaur unit with the BSB moves up into the forest as well. We figure we might as well get some forest cover and get a little bit closer as well. The smaller unit of 20 gore moves forward at full speed, shielding the Minotaurs with my general in it. I'm trying to make it look like they're just going to go into a headlong charge, but their job is actually to peel off and distract the hammerers whilst the Minotaurs run past into the soft juicy bits of the Dwarven army. And the second Razor Gore to the west moves up to cause flank problems. In the magic phase, I try to cast Enfeebling Foe on the Quarrelers, and he dispels it. And then I cast Miasma, the big Miasma spell, on the Organ Gun with Irresistible Force, which blows up, kills a couple of goats, and wounds my wizard. Could have been worse, I guess. Next up is the shooting phase. Yep, I know, a Beastmen shooting phase! It's so exciting! I'm spoilt for choice about which one of his war machines I'm going to go for, but I figure that I'm protected from the flame cannon with my wizard's little trinket. The cannon will probably kill my Cygor, but I really need my infantry to make it into combat. So eventually I decide that the organ gun just has to go, so I aim for that. So my Cygor heaves his men here, and with a mighty throw, throws it across the board, over a forest, to directly hit the organ gun, doing whatever. I think I rolled a 6 for its D3 or D6 wounds. I think it does D6 wounds, and pulverizes the stupid war machine, and I'm so happy. I was a little bit sad that I had taken a wound on my wizard and some casualties for essentially no reason, but then my opponent pointed out that the organ gun would be using his Master Engineer's ballistic skill instead of its own, and so that spell wouldn't have mattered anyway, and made me even more happy about my rock throwing. So with that, we go into Dwarf turn 2. The hammerers move up to protect the war machines. The quarrelers turn to receive the charge from the ambushing gore. The gyrocopter zips up next to the Razor Gore hiding behind the rock, so that it can't see it, the war machine copter thing. And that's about it. Oh, the cannon hits the Cygor, rips it apart, doing 5 wounds, and just blows all its limbs off, essentially. Poor Cygor. And, oh my goodness, the flame cannon, I think, this time, gets a hit bang on the gore unit. Strips off, I don't know, it looks like 7 of them or something. And I'm like, aha, but wait, my mage has the Dragonbane gem. We look it up, and it turns out that it only affects him, and he wasn't under the template, so it makes no difference. And I lose a lot of goats. To make matters a little bit worse, the flame template also hits the Minotaur unit behind it, and does D3 wounds, kills 1 Minotaur outright, and wounds another one. That cannon. A small recompense is that with the general and the BSB right next to them, the unit passes its panic check. In the centre, the Thunderers fire at the goats in the trees and kill, I think, something like 4 of them. And the gyrocopter squirts its squirty stuff at the Razorgore, but doesn't wound it. Pumped up into a blood frenzy, the 10 raiders charge the Quarrelers and lose 5 of their number to the storm of crossbow shots that come their way. But as they're frenzied, they don't care and charge headlong into the Dwarves. Over to the east, the other ambushers come in. And, you know, that's not bad, but I was kind of hoping they'd be on the other flank as well. There's not a lot they can do there, but yeah, I mean, at least he didn't get to place them, so that's something. The Razorgore behind the rock tries a longish charge at the Thunderers and fails, and just hops over the rock, essentially. The Gore in the forest are good goatees and don't eat the mushrooms, so they can move out normally and into the teeth of the Dwarven gun line. The Minotaurs pop up next to them, or behind them, using them as cover. Over to the west, the Shaman pops out of the Gore unit, realising that his magic trinket didn't do the job he thought it was going to do. He didn't have enough range to get into the bigger unit facing the Thunderers, so he decides to run out, waving his arm, shouting, "Shoot me, shoot me!" in the hopes of drawing some attention away from the rest of the army that's actually going to end up doing something. The unit that got ravaged by the flame cannon moves up in front of the hammerers to block them off from charging the Minotaurs, and hopefully they'll charge us and reveal a flank to the Minotaurs, as I just can't see any way of dealing with this unit without getting into its flank, so I can maximise my attacks and minimise his attacks. The second Razorgore, you can see here, charged into the flank of the Quarrelers, and I really debated sending it round through that gap behind the lines and going in at the cannon crews, which were over here, towards the centre, but I thought the Dwarves were just going to win combat, turn around and shoot him down in their go, so I tried to give my goats the fighting chance and send him into the flank and hope that they could tie them up for a turn. You'll see how that goes. In the magic phase, I rolled a double 1. I throw everything at enfeebling foe, the minusing strength spell on the hammerers, trying to get another miscast, kind of hoping that the explosion will hurt them as well, but I don't get the miscast, and he just pulls out his rune spell. He doesn't break it, but that ends my magic phase. Good luck next turn, Mr. Shaman. In combat, my frenzied Gores hack down 2 dwarf quarrelers and are completely massacred in turn. The Razorgore flubs its attacks, kills 1 quarreler, and takes a wound in return. We weren't quite sure if it would lose frenzy because it lost combat so horribly, but we decided that since the Altar of Cain is like a bubble effect where everything in it has frenzy, and anything outside of that bubble loses frenzy, we thought that that means it's like a permanent frenzy. So the Razorgore stuck, and that's exactly what I wanted, so I can't really complain. But he reforms to face me. Sadly, the Dwarves refuse to take the bait, and the Hammerers don't charge my Gore unit, which is very sad. The Gyrocopter continues to be an annoyance and sits there and gets into a nice position to flame my Gore unit. I don't think anything's changed there. Right, the cannon decides to grape shot and rolls a 10. Obviously it's shooting my Shaman, and yep, that is good by Shaman. He tried, and took the attention away from my Doombull, so that's good enough. Good enough for me. The flame cannon overshoots a bit, and the only thing it ends up hurting is my Battle Standard Bearer Gorbel, which you can see there by that star. I was a bit annoyed at the time, but looking back on it, actually that's fairly good for the Beastmen. In combat, that's a dead Razorgore. He may have killed one or two, it didn't matter. Okay, let's see what's going on here. The remaining Razorgore charges the Thunderers and makes it, and doesn't take any damage to Overwatch, or Stand and Shoot. And that's really good. I'm just hoping to do enough damage to hold. I debate sending the big Gore unit in to support the Razorgore, but I can't take another turn of War Machine fire, so I send them into the cannon instead. I'm thinking I should be able to kill it and overrun into the flame cannon, and then he's got no more artillery to bother me with. This leaves me with the pressing problem of the hammerers. There's no way I'm doing a frontal charge with my nice squishy toughness 4 minotaurs into all those great weapons, so I move the Gore unit up even closer, making sure he can't charge the minotaurs, and daring him to reveal that flank. The Doombull sees an opportunity to get in on that flank, and takes it and breaks off and runs up to stare at the flank of the hammerers. And I'm just praying that he's dumb enough to charge the Gore. I know he's not, but this is all I can think of. The ambushing Gore jog up, hoping to eventually get into combat one day. In combat, the Razorgore flubs its attacks, kills one dwarf, and takes 2 wounds in return, and runs away. The Gore failed to kill the cannon crew, and it just, what can you do? So they're stuck there. The dwarves aren't going anywhere because they're stubborn and re-rolling and whatever else. So yeah, that could have gone better. I'm starting to get that sinking feeling. In the dwarf turn, they're having nothing to do with my audacious tactics, and the hammerers just wheel back to protect their flank with my own unit. And I'm left there with a complete mess of a situation, because he's happy to sit there all day and shoot me to pieces, which is what he starts to do. The Thunderers beat on the Minotaurs and kill one and wound another one. The Flame Cannon doesn't care that there's a huge unit in the way, directly in front of it, and flames the Minotaurs, the other group of Minotaurs, melting one and doing 2 wounds to another one. Yeah. War machines. I'm not really sure what the Quarrelers do. Maybe they shot the Gore? It doesn't look like they kill very many things. Oh well. And over to the east, the Gyrocopter scolds 3 of the Gore raiders to death, and they fail their panic check because they're nowhere near the BSB or the General, and run away. And that's pretty much what one can expect. In combat, the Gore finally kill the last of the cannon crew and reform to charge the flame cannon in my go, which is nice. This is what we do in the Beastmen turn, and hopefully we'll kill them all, overrun, and hit the Master Engineer, who's now swapped over to the other side of this war machine, and pick up some points there. And now the big decision. Do I charge the hammerers? I ummed-and-erred about this for a bit too long, I think, and I'm grateful to my opponent for being understanding. But in the end I decided just to go for glory. I charged with the Doombull, who took the stand and shoot crossbow shot from the Thane and saved it with his shield, or, made his armour save, and then charged with the Minotaurs of the Gorbul's unit, which the Thunderers had very, very kindly whittled down to a small enough size that I could actually fit in the gap. So look forward to some full frontal Minotaur this combat phase. In other news, my fleeing Razorgore and Gore both rallied and returned to the fight, and my Minotaurs, who are unengaged, the unit of 2 I think that were left, moved up to take on the Thunderers, as I didn't really have space to fit them in anywhere else, and my Gore unit I think just sat there looking pretty. In combat we're seeing stars because the 2 units knocked the hell out of each other. Heartbleed the Doombull took out, I think it was something like 3 dwarves. The Gorebull Battle Standard Bearer made a tactical challenge and was accepted by one of the hammerers, because apparently they can do that. And he had no trouble killing that hammerer. And for once I remembered about characters, and both my minotaurs attacked the Battle Standard Bearer of the Dwarves. And this was pretty key, because they killed him, both being in base to base. And we looked to see if there's any kind of lookouts roll that he might get, but we couldn't find anything. So yeah, he died. Which was amazing. Not that I knew at the time. As he was in a challenge, no one could attack the Gorebull. The hammerers pulped the minotaurs in revenge for their fallen thane, and then did, I think, 3 wounds. Just a ton of hits hit the Doombull. And with his 1-up rerollable save, which was reduced to a 4-up rerollable save, he tanked, I think, about 7 wounds, and took down the rest of the dwarf pile you see there, and took 3 wounds for his troubles. So he's up and, he's wounded, but he's still alive. We lose combat by 1, which is a bit poo, because now I've lost Frenzy, and we're gonna die. We're just gonna die next turn. But that wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna go. I'm pleased with my guys. They did a good job. In the dwarf turn, there's not really a whole lot of movement. The Thunderers finished the job on the Minotaurs in the shooting phase. The Quarrelers, I think, killed 2 of those Gore. In the unit you can see they're holding the flank of the Minotaurs. And they passed their panic check, which is very good. But again, they're right there next to the General and the BSB, so one would hope they'd do that. The Gyrocopter moves up to try to take the last wound off the Razorgore, which is again threatening the Thunderers, but doesn't do anything. But what we're really interested in is the combat, right? So the Gore failed to kill the cannon crew again. No, I'm sorry. They only killed 1 member of the cannon crew in the last combat phase, and this time they finally finished the job. And because they didn't kill it in the turn they charged, they can only reform and are just sat there looking at the Master Engineer, whose head should already be theirs by rights. In the main combat, the Gorebull Battle Standard Bearer challenges again. This time, the champion of the unit, who saw what happened to the Thane, decides he'd rather not tangle with the beast. Saunters to the back, whistling with his hands in his pockets, whilst the rest of his fellows slap their hammers in their hands, menacingly. The Minotaurs take a respectable haul of dwarves this turn, and my opponent just rolls appallingly. I think they only managed to slip 1 wound through on the Doombull, who promptly fails all his rerolls, but still, he's still alive. And then somehow, all those hammerers only do 2 wounds to the Gorebull. He's got the Armour of Destiny, so that's helping him out, but I think I got very lucky, and he didn't really roll that many wounds at all, and that's going to hurt the dwarves. Because it means, what with their ranks and banners and runes of courage and whatever else they've got, that they have to take that they lose combat and have to take a leadership test on a stubborn 9 without a reroll, because the Thane with the Battle Standard banner is dead. And this is a moment that's going to stay in my memory for a very long time. The kind of thing that gets framed and put on a shelf between the pictures of a wedding and a first child. That kind of thing. Because, ladies and gentlemen, those stubborn hammerers broke and ran away. My Gorebull can't quite believe its eyes and only pursues 1, but my Doombull is like, yes, let's do this, and ran a whole 6, which is as much as you can do. Unfortunately, the hammerers ran 8, and so got away. But now the game has completely turned on its head, because it's now my turn. Would you believe I declared some charges? Heartbleed the Doombull decided that the Master Engineer looked like a tasty morsel, and so charged him. Over on the east side, the Razor Gore got back into the flank of the Thunderers, which was quite nice. But the Gorbel hadn't taken his eyes off the Hammerer unit, who were teetering there right on the edge of the table, and declared his charge. And apparently, when you charge a fleeing unit, it is automatically destroyed. Yep. We spent quite a while looking through the rulebook to make sure of this. And if anyone's still listening, I'm sure you know that thing is not easy to look through for a particular rule. But we just couldn't find anything that said otherwise, and so all the Hammerers were destroyed. If anyone knows a reason why this shouldn't have happened, please put it in the comments below, because this was fairly crucial in how the game turned out. In the Dwarf turn, the Gyrocopter makes a desperate manoeuvre. It positions itself in front of the bigger Gore unit, protecting the exposed rear of the more expensive Thunderer unit in an effort to save some points. It angles itself so that if the Gore fail a panic test and run away, they'll probably run off the table, which was we talked about this beforehand, and we that's what we came up with as probably a good idea for the Gyrocopter. Surprisingly tricky to manoeuvre it into a position where it could do that, though. It killed a couple of Gores in the shooting phase, which was enough to force that panic check, and I rolled the dice one at a time, and I rolled a 5. And then, heart in mouth, I rolled a 2, and they're so far away from my general. Well, my general's off the board, and my battle standard bearer's miles away, and that was just enough to stay. And phew! In combat, the Razor Gore whiffed, and the Dwarves had no problem putting it down for good. In my turn, the Doombull returned to the field, licking his chops, and basically stopped the Gore from moving around anywhere, but that doesn't matter. They're having a chat, they've earned it. I decided to double charge the Gyrocopter with both Gore units to try to be sure of some points, and I figured the Thunderers are probably going to kill the smaller unit in Overwatch, so that's what I do. In combat, we managed to put a wound on it, which I was quite surprised, and break it with combat res. And so, yep, that's what we wanted. I think we overrun into the back of the Thunderers anyway, but this is the last turn, so there's nothing to be done about that. Now, I did also charge my Gorbel at the Quarrelers. The smart thing to do would have been just to keep running around them, because I was fairly sure that I'd got enough points to if not win, then to, draw convincingly. But that's no fun, so we decided to end the game with an epic challenge. So the Gorbel strode forward, bellowing loudly about the willingness of the Dwarfs' mothers to bestow their favours upon him. After a bit of debate among themselves, it was decided that the Runesmith would step up and defend the Dwarven honour. My opponent could have just declined the challenge and then massacred my Minotaur with all those great weapon attacks, but he was a good sport. And I mean, that would have been hilarious, but yeah, he decided to do things the honourable way. After winning combat previously, the Gorbel was pretty frenzied up and glutted with blood for blood greed. And so he had quite a number of attacks, and he managed to wound the Runesmith once, which surprised everyone. The Runesmith in return failed to wound him, but the Dwarf still won combat. And it was up to again for a leadership test, which this time, because of the reroll, the Minotaur passed. And that ended the game. And that is a picture of how things looked right at the end. Good game. The final score was 220 points in the favour of the Beastmen. Having read the rulebook now, it turns out the only way to win is by either tabling your opponent or getting twice as many points as he did or she did. And I find this hugely unsatisfying. No one likes a draw, especially not after all the time and effort you put into these games. And it just seems right that there's some gradation of victory and defeat. So my system of scoring games is as follows. Take the army with the highest score, calculate the difference in their favour as a percentage of the points limit of the game. A percentage difference of 0 to 20 is a draw. A difference of 21 to 50 is a minor victory.
A percentage difference of 51 to 80 is a major victory, and a percentage difference of 81 to 100% is a massacre, which includes tabling the opponent. Points are gained for individual models destroyed or fleeing at the end of the game. An additional 100 points are gained for destroying or causing to flee the enemy general, and 25 points extra per banner captured. Come to think of it, I don't think we included the scores for banners in the points calculation of this game, but I think I got one of his, and I don't think he got any of mine, but yeah, it would make no difference. So the final score of this game was a draw, and a well fought game. My opponent was a great guy, he's awesome fun to play, and he had this game in the bag, and was looking set for a very comfortable victory. But the game turned on a single dice roll, and that's just Warhammer. So yeah, that was a difficult game, and my goatees pulled through by the skin of their teeth, and I'm very proud of them. Looking forward to the rematch though. Thanks for watching.